Here we are, clan the isms, cataclysm great. Our people out here struggling, trying to make it in this state. Everybody out here doing it, but we the ones who late. Now family, we the ones who gotta delegate. Get that money in the power, never be fake. Stick to cosign for 3. What did he say? Create jobs, support our own. Educate the same and buy back your home. Got 3 degrees, triple 10. 3 PhDs, now we on the CNN. DBTV, let's talk about negligence. Ignorance is bliss, but we can turn it to intelligence. Believe none of what you hear, half of what you see. Let's break it down here on Dr Boyce TV. Here we are.
Watkins, welcome to drboycetv.com, the home for intelligent Black people. You guys have been following the election, and I know you guys have different opinions across the board, and I'm okay with whatever opinion you have as long as you think it through and you make sure it's your opinion, not somebody else's. So one of the big debate topics that's really been rising up lately is sorry, hold on, give me a second. I'm echoing. There we go. All right, I think I'm done echoing now. One of the big debate topics going on right now has to do with the presidential election and Joe Biden, Donald Trump, and everything in between. And so a friend of mine by the name of Etan Thomas, he's not just a former NBA player, he's an intelligent guy, and he's a Syracuse grad, he's an activist, and he knows a lot of, he knows a lot about a lot. He and I have some disagreements on certain areas, and I thought it would be fun for a change to talk things out as opposed to just assume that we all know the truth. So first of all, I'd like to ask my brother, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. How you doing?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Great to see you again.
Oh, good to see you too.
Yeah, you and I see each other about, seems like once a year, once every 2 years. And every time it's like we pick right back up, man. You
That's
got
right.
good energy. So if you guys have seen Etan or any of his work, say something in the chat because I think you're gonna like what you have to, what he has to say. So let's just start from the jump. There's been a lot of chatter about the election coming up and Biden, and Trump, and every day there's new developments and people have different points of view on it. What is your position, just as a human being, as a Black man, as a father, on the upcoming 2020 election?
Well, even going back, so let's take it one step even back further, because reason why I called you, let's go back to reason why I reached out to you, because so you wrote, I wrote a post on Instagram, and I said, I don't have the post right in front of me, dang, but I said something to the effect of that to beware of Black people who continuously point out the deficiencies of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, but say nothing about Donald Trump. And I said they could be on the Trump payroll. And so I made that. And sometimes you make posts, sometimes they get a little bit of likes, sometimes they get a lot of likes. There's no rhyme or reason sometimes. Well, that one kind of went everywhere. And so then it was one evening, it was right before I was going to sleep, and I saw your post, and you said, I think my friend just accused me of being on the Trump payroll. So I saw it, and I was like, nah, he's not talking about me. I don't think he took it that way or anything like that. So I went on to sleep. And I woke up and I got a lot of messages that said, hey, did you diss Dr. Watkins? Did you? I was like, no, what happened? What do you mean? So that's what I reached out to. I said, let's talk about this. And I watched the video and I was like, okay, yeah, let me definitely talk to him. So just make it clear, that was not directed at you. I don't think that you fall into that category. Anybody that knows you knows that you are not aboard the Trump train. You have done posts about Trump. I think I just saw actually last week you posted about what was it that he was against the California, what was it that implementation in schools to tell history the right way, and he was against it. You just posted about that with Black Knowledge a little while ago. So you definitely don't fall into that category. We do have some disagreements and different ways of strategy, but we're on the same side. So I wanted to make that clear from the beginning. Now, there are a lot of Black people who do fall into that category that I see around social media. And it wasn't directed at one person in particular. It was directed at a lot of people. I mean, it's interesting where, you're looking at even going to protests. All right. So you see different protests. And then all of a sudden you see some people who have a completely different energy than everybody else. Completely different. Anybody that's been to a protest know exactly what I'm talking about. Completely different energy. They're not focused on what everybody else is focused on. They're focused on something else. They want to, break something. They want to do something. A lot of times these are Trump supporters. These are people who are paid by the Trump administration and to go over there and agitate and protest. And sometimes they're also undercover policemen. Now, those have been documented. Those are definitely, that's not like a myth or anything like that. Those are actually documented. Sometimes when you see different people pontificating on different platforms and you're looking at them, and I'm talking about Black people in particular. I'm not talking about Fox News and John Hannon. We know what they do. I'm talking about Black people. So when Black people are doing it and you're listening to them and you can't help but thinking, wait a minute, they're kind of making a case for Trump now. And so those are the people who I was directing that to. And I'm seeing it a lot in social media. And, people are almost discouraging an entire generation of people not to vote. So not doing what you're doing, where you're saying, okay, we want to push for a better, for more out of our options. You know what I mean? Like you're saying that, no, we want to be able to say we expect more from you and you have to earn my vote. That's different. I'm all on board on that. And yes, Joe Biden does need to earn our vote. And yes, he needs to answer for the crime bill and things of the past. And Kamala Harris needs to answer for the time that she was AG in California. All of that, I 100% agree with you. So that wasn't what, my post was directed at. It was more of the people who are trying to make a case for Trump and making a case for discouraging Black people to vote, which does, and this might be one part where we do have a disagreement, where I do believe, especially if you're in a swing state, that if you do not vote, that is in a sense a vote for Trump. If you vote third party or write in, I do feel that is a vote for Trump, because everybody who is especially in a swing state. Now, if you're in Maryland, if you're in New York, that's a little different. But if you're in a swing state, Florida, you know what I mean? Those swing states where every single vote counts, all the Trump voters are locked and loaded. They're ready. They don't care what Trump does. He can do anything and they're still going to vote for him. But, so if you, because you're not interested in you're not satisfied with the options and you're in a swing state and you say, well, I'm going to withhold my vote. And I'm just as a practical standpoint, yes, that does equal a vote for Trump. Not saying that you don't have the freedom to do it. Of course you have the freedom to do it, but you also have to understand that that's what it equals, especially in a swing state. Do you disagree or agree with that one?
All right. So let's dig into that.
Okay.
Before we move forward on it, let everybody know I'm speaking to my good friend Etan Thomas. Etan Thomas is an activist and a very smart Black man, and we're debating the presidential election and Biden, Trump, and everything in between. So let me just throw this at you then. Okay, so I've heard a lot of people say this. I mean, I hear this a lot, on the left, that not voting is a vote for Trump. Not voting is a vote, and it's not the first time we've heard that, right? We hear it every election. Going all the way back to when I was in college, if you don't vote, you're voting for the Republicans. And I don't really hear the Republicans say, if you don't vote, that's a vote for the Democrats. So what that tells me is that implies that there's a type of almost like an ownership that they feel like, look, if you don't vote for us, then that means that's like you're voting for somebody else because you're supposed to be voting for us. Like, we want all of you to show up to the polls, but as long as you vote for us. Like, so it almost feels a little disingenuous, right? Like, if they were to, what if there was a group of people, Black people, who said, okay, since we're doing voter drives, we're going to tell everybody to show up and vote, but they're not going to vote for you. So do you still want to have your voter drive? Do you still want to encourage everybody to show up to the polls if they're not going to vote for you? It's almost like if I want Alicia to go down to the kitchen, as long as she makes me a sandwich. But what if she's going downstairs to cook for somebody else? Do I still want to support her, the way I would have supported her when she was cooking for me? Do you feel that is a little bit of bias, or a little bit of almost like presumed ownership? Going back to when Biden said, if you don't vote for me, then you ain't Black. How do you reconcile comments like that, when you're moving forward, picking your candidate?
I think that's a great point as far as what Biden said. I think Biden is a candidate who, and where I stand with Biden, he's a candidate that has many faults. He was not in my top 5 pick for candidates. Number one, he might have barely been in the top 10. I'll say barely, might have squeezed in there, but he was not in my top 5 pick. But I'm looking at him and I'm not using the analogy of lesser of two evils. I don't think he's evil. I think that he needs to be pushed to be better, but I don't think he's evil. I think Trump is evil. And it's not a personal thing with Trump. It's not you know what I mean? That I don't care that I'm not gonna say I don't care. What he says is not based on emotion, it's based on his actions and things that he has specifically implemented. I look at that as evil. We can go down the list of that. We don't have, we kind of know where Trump is with everything. But with Biden, I think that he needs to be pushed to do better. So I just saw that Ice Cube was going to meet with Biden to talk about the contract of Black America. I think that's great. I don't think that Trump takes that meeting. Trump wants to make a certain meeting to have a certain black person so he can go in and say, okay, this black person is with me, and that's why you can't call me racist. He did it with Steve Harvey. He did it with Jim Brown, which was so sad to see because of course, everybody admired Jim Brown. He did it with a lot of Kanye West. Well, that's a whole different issue. But I mean, he's done that with black people. That's different than what Biden is doing now with Ice Cube. Now, so Ice Cube has his attention, right? So now he can push for different things. Now he can move for everything and make sure that he has the components of the contract with Black America. And I think that's what you're supposed to do, because Biden definitely has his faults. Don't get me wrong, but I do think that sometimes in the casting of it and the way that we're casting the options, it's not a matter of ownership. Now, when Biden says, if you don't vote for me, you're not black, that's ownership. Totally agree. And that's one that he was checked on. It was a miss. I don't know if I would say it was a misspeak because when Charlemagne the God pressed him, it was like he was backed into a corner, and that's when he said it because he didn't have anything else to come back with to what Charlemagne the God was saying. And I do agree with you with that. I know I saw the interview with Cardi B, and she gave him, I'm not gonna say easy questions, but she played nice with him. You know what I mean? And she presented well with him. And I will say that, but I will say that there's a lot that they need to answer for. And I agree with you that they need to earn our vote. Now, if it depends on where to specifically answer your question, it depends on who is saying this. So if Boyce Watkins is saying, or if I'm saying that, yes, you need to be able to go down and exercise your right to vote. That's different than saying Joe Biden saying it or somebody in a Democrat. So one thing straight, I don't consider myself a Democrat. I know a lot of times some people do because they hear me saying different things and they think there's a lot of things with the Democratic Party that I specifically disagree with. I wish there was a third party, and don't go, yes, there's a third party, but I wish that we had more options to be able to choose from between Republican and Democrat. There's some things that I'll say, okay, I can agree with the Republicans on this. Okay, there's some things I can say I can agree with the Democrats on this, but not everything. So no, I'm not a Democrat and going with everything Democrat. That's not what I feel. So there are a lot of different initiatives that have been going on where they've been trying to get people to exercise the right to vote and exercise voting and having young people be involved in voting. And they want to specifically be nonpartisan and everything like that. So that I hear your point. You know what I'm so but if you're talking about a specific Democratic organization that is pushing for somebody to go and to exercise their right to vote, then that's different because then they're doing exactly what you're saying is doing. Well, vote as long as you're voting for us. So it kind of depends on the source of who is trying to encourage people to vote. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I mean, I'm really listening. I know maybe some people were comfortable with the back and forth debate stuff, but I personally feel like we live in a society of know-it-alls. I think we live in a world now where everybody feels like their opinion is the opinion. And if you don't agree, then something's wrong with you. Like Alicia and I just started watching this documentary that everybody may want to take a look at. It's I'm gonna pull up on my phone. It's about social media and what social media has done to just us as human beings. And what we did was it's called The Social Dilemma. The Social Dilemma. It's one of the most trending new movies on Netflix. And on The Social Dilemma, the first 5 minutes captured our attention to the point where we just decided we're going to watch it as a family because, our kids are all caught up in the YouTube and videos and everything else. So we said, we need to watch this as a family because I'm a believer that social media has made our society better in a lot of ways, but there are a lot of ways where it's making society worse. I was really pleased that you reached out because I know the kind of person you are. I'm glad you reached out. Because one thing, I wasn't trying to do, and I know you wouldn't do this, is I'm not going to sit here and just have a beef back and forth through the internet or whatever. It's like, no, I'm not losing no friends over this stuff ever, not good people, and so it's kind of like, I think we're just not learning from each other. I think that it is hard to do. It's humbling, right? It's very humbling. It's ego that causes us to say, well, you're just stupid. I'm not listening to you. Right. But I think that if we can let go of our ego and kind of say, okay, if somebody is doing something different from what I'm doing, let me just hear them out. I might walk away saying, man, I ain't doing none of that. But I like to hear it because I think that preserves the humanity of the other party. That maintains their humanity. So if you listen to a Trump supporter, for example, I'll use the most extreme example. I got people that vote for Trump in my family. I do. And so I don't hate them. I'm not going to go kill a family member because of what they voted for. But I might sit down and say, so what led you to make that decision? And so is there room for that? Like, is there room for any kind of decency, or have we got to the point where we've just decided that because, you know, the other side is, because what they're doing is so atrocious, they don't deserve the right to even be heard or considered on any level? That part I can't ride. That makes me a little bit uncomfortable. Because you do that to them, they're gonna do that to you, right? And then we're in a civil war. What do you think?
Well, I think that in many ways they have done that to us. I think that in many ways, I mean, Trump has made it quite clear. I mean, I just saw an article just today. I think it was out of the conversation that he had with Woodard, and he said that, you know, he doesn't care what the Black community, he doesn't feel that he needs to feel any emotional ties to what the black community has gone through, or something to that effect. They made it quite clear over and over where they feel. And that's the part where it's tough talking to a Trump supporter who says, okay, well, I like this one policy, so I'm going to ignore all the other stuff because I like this one policy. Listen, I'm in the top tax bracket myself. I played in the NBA for 11 years. I did not squander all my money away. You know what I mean? My portfolio is doing quite well. I listen to, I call you sometimes with different advice. So what do you think about this? You know, I called you about the susu. Like, what, this is new thing, this susu. What do you think about that? You know, so I'm watching, I got my degree in business management. You know, I make wise investments. So I'm saying this to say, I am in the top tax bracket. There is no way that you can convince me to vote for Trump because of that reason. There's no way on earth. And you have different people who are, you know, whose net worth is way more than me, you know what I mean, of saying that that's the sole reason, because he gives the tax breaks and they financially benefit from it. And that's not something that I could just support and ignore all the other stuff. In your video, you talked about the personal effect that you had from the crime bill and how you personally know different people from the crime bill, you know, who were affected by that. And we all know that. And so, you know, for me with Trump, I can even go back to when I was younger. You know, I was born in Harlem. You know, I moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma when I was younger, but I spent all my summers in Harlem. My mother's side was from Harlem. My father's side was from upstate New York, Mount Vernon. So that's where I spent my summers. And I remember it was 1989, and that's when the Central Park 5 happened. And I remember being in middle school and my grandmother being terrified when Trump got on the TV and said that he wanted the death penalty for them and said he wanted to execute all of them. And he kept referring to us as animals. And when it wasn't just the Central Park 5, it was all young Black men. So he gave a mandate to the NYPD to use whatever means you possibly need to round up all young Black men in Harlem that you could possibly find until we found out who did this to this white girl.
Okay, so let me just challenge you a little bit on that. So
okay, go ahead.
Specifically say, go get all the young Black men, or did he just say, I don't like those young Black men, like, or I don't like. In fact, no. But I mean, I want to make that.
And let's make it clear though, because I
think that point should be considered. And the reason I say this is not because I don't think Trump is a racist. I think that there are a lot of Donald Trumps. I see, when I see Joe Biden, I see another Donald Trump. And what I mean by that is not to the point where their policies are the same. We know one's liberal, more liberal, one's conservative, right? We know, or somewhat, right? They're different, but you know. When I heard Biden's rhetoric on the crime bill, you know, and they're using terms like super predators and he puts 100,000 cops on the street and dollars into prisons.
I agree 100%.
That to me says to me that if those two had got together and had a conversation at the time of the Central Park 5, around what was it, 89, 90?
1989.
I believe that they would have been in lockstep in their opinion. I believe that they would have agreed, yes, we need more cops on the street to protect us from these animals because somebody's going to get hurt, and we got to protect, you know, basically white women, right, and rich people, right? Because at that time, remember, at the time that Trump was making his crazy statements about Central Park 5, which turned out to not be true, Biden was passing the crime bill. Well, you know, so it almost sounds like they were on that same team, part of the same clan, if you will. What are your thoughts on that?
But here's the difference, though, is because now then you look fast forward to right now, Donald Trump is still saying the same thing. You know what I mean? Biden, even if you look at his website, and nobody goes, and I will say that he needs to be able to articulate what he has on his website, but he has specifically an answer to everything that happened in the crime bill. He said specifically of what he wanted to do to be able to improve those things. He mentioned all of it, every component that he got there. If we're dating back to the time where he was presenting and saying why they need the crime bill, he is presented on his website, and you can go to it. It's joebiden.com, where he lists the plans for Black America. One plan is for the Lift Every Voice and Sing, which is a terrible name for it. I will say that. It's not like he said for the plan for the Jewish community is the Hava Nikita plan. He didn't say that. You know what I mean? He said the Jewish community. But we'll, you know, put that aside for now. But he lists a plan. And in that plan, he has the different things of criminal justice. He has the different of housing, economics, the things like that nature. And in the criminal justice reform, he has those everything that he argued for during the crime bill. So he has changed from that. You know what I mean? And this is not something, I mean, this is, don't take my word for it. Just go to joebiden.com or whatever his website is and look under the Plan for Black America, scroll down and look, you'll see the specific language to answer that. So I have seen so there is a shift. So I can't say that he's like Trump. Then I look at Trump right now during all the protests, and Trump is saying law and order. He's saying, everybody, you know, I'm going to restore law and order. We know what that means. I'm going to mandate the police to use whatever means they have to be able to squash the protesters. We know what that means. When he goes in and praises one person, what's the little white kid, Kyle Rittenhouse? They had the AR-15 walking on you know what I mean? And then he wants to make the case and say, oh, well, I can't say anything about Jacob Blake. You know, I can't speak on that because, so he has clearly along the same lines that he was back during that time in the crime bill. I have seen a difference for Joe Biden. So that's why I say you can't compare the two to say that they're one and the same. You can say that one needs to be pushed to be better and one is evil. That's what I see with them. Now, again, Joe Biden has his deficiencies. He has his faults, a whole list of faults, but I don't think they're one and the same.
Well, they're definitely not one and the same, and I agree with you. And everybody who's watching, by the way, I'm speaking with Etan Thomas, and we're talking about the black vote, the presidential election, and having a conversation that I think needs to be had. If you just came into drboycetv.com, please take 1 second right now. Please hit the thumbs up button. Everybody, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Also, please share, subscribe, and all this other good stuff. And also, if you want to get a free e-copy of my book, It Takes a Village to Raise the Bar, feel free to go to drboycewatkins.net. That's drboycewatkins.net. So let me ask you this question, man. Let me jump in and let's talk about the law and order thing. And here's the thing about Trump. You know, I was talking to Alicia and I. You know, I live with a smart black woman, so she's always just like you do. And and you know, they've got great opinions and that make us better men. And one of the things Alicia was talking about was we were both kind of in agreement. You know, we were talking about just generally speaking that that with Trump, you do get the sense that you don't really have a grown up in the White House. You know, you kind of have a guy who's I've always known he's a narcissist. That's something I knew that 30 years ago. Just if you listen to his interviews early, even when he was 28 years old, there's an interesting interview where he was buying a $400 million building at the age of 28, which honestly, I think that's pretty impressive. You know, white privilege and all. Most white guys don't get to do that, right? So, but he was speaking in a way that almost seemed almost too confident, you know, like just extremely overconfident. He seems self-absorbed, you know, and he has a lot of personality issues that I don't think make him fit for that level of leadership. Now, one thing I'll say is that when I hear him talk about the protests and law and order, here's what I see when it comes to race in both parties. I think that Trump dislikes black people if they're liberal. I think Trump loves black people if they are conservative. I think Biden dislikes black people if they are conservative, and Biden loves black people if they are liberal. And so I think that sometimes when we go out and we say you're racist because you don't like that black person right there, I think we should be careful about that language, because what we're doing is we're giving liberals and conservatives the right to define what blackness looks like. That's how Biden can come back and say, well, if you ain't voting for me, then you ain't black. Like your black card got revoked because you're not liberal, right? All black people must be liberal. Well, I don't believe that's the case. I think when I see a guy like a Trump, I see tons of black people around him, right? They just don't think like you or I. Like, I'm not going to run around with a MAGA hat, but I don't know if we have the right to deny the blackness of the people that do. You know, a lot of them are, you know, it's so ironic to watch, you know, the black conservatives, because they're almost doing cartwheels to really try to prove like, hey, I'm still black. I just happen to be a conservative. I happen to hate, you know, maybe they're pro-life instead of pro-choice. Maybe they don't care about building a wall at the border. Maybe they want to keep illegal immigration out, right? Maybe they hate Antifa and the leftists, because you know what was going on with the protests. These were not black protests. Black people showed up. It was somebody else who was busting windows and burning down buildings and shooting at cops. We don't operate like that. We don't roll like that. So I almost feel like, and I think this happened a little bit, I think that these are opportunities for us to really define our blackness and say, no, it's separate from all of that. Like in Detroit, when they came in there with all that, like, we're going to burn down building stuff, the black people worked with the local police to keep the outsiders out of the protests. They're like, look, a peaceful protest is one thing, but if you showing up trying to get into this radical leftism, this anarchist, behavior, we don't do that. That's not who we are. How do you think we can sort of navigate an election like this and maintain our sovereignty and kind of say, look, you can be my brother even if you happen to be wearing a MAGA hat or whatever. Like, I know it's repulsive for a lot of us. A lot of us don't get that. Like, I don't know a lot of black folks who will walk around with a MAGA hat on, but I don't want to tell somebody you ain't black no more because of who you voted for. That just doesn't sit well with me. How do you think we can draw that balance?
Well, I don't think it's a matter of you're not black anymore. I think that's not that. Sometimes we get caught up in arguments that aren't really the issue. And of course, I blame Biden for that because he made a statement that he shouldn't have said. So that's definitely true. I think that when you look at the policies and the specific policy, and I'm just talking about policies. I'm not talking about as far as one. You made the analogy that Biden loves black people that agree with him, and Trump loves black people that agree with him. And I think that's definitely true. I don't care if neither one of them love. Love isn't even a part of it. You know what I mean? Like none of them love us. Let's make that clear. Biden don't love us. Trump don't love us. Let's take the emotional love part out of it and just look purely at the policies that they have. So let's take up as far as the police. Yes, there is an issue right now with the police and the way that the police departments are operating when it comes to black and brown people. That is a fact. What Trump has done, and the dangerous part of Trump, is that he demonizes everyone that looks like me and you, and he wants to be able to, reward a system that is proven to be faulty. Every system that you have, every aspect of society, you need checks and balances. Every aspect. There is no aspect in here where you could just have carte blanche to do whatever you want to do, except for police departments. You know what I mean? And for Trump to be able to support that and then consciously flip the script to mean that if you want to defund the police, that means abolish the police. And that means that you want anarchy. And then and it's crazy how he could say something and say it a whole lot of times, and then people start believing it. It's like a sick cult, like Children of the Corn or something like that. You know what I mean? It's completely crazy. But no, thinking people know that the word defund does not mean the same thing as the word abolish. They're not synonyms. They're two different things. So Trump is he does a great job of creating a narrative. And that narrative then becomes something that is detrimental to our people as a whole. So then you get caught up in the narrative. Well, and this is why I fault Biden. He knows what the devil defund is and what abolish is. He knows the difference of the two. So he bought into Trump's narrative and said, oh no, well, we don't want to defund the police completely. And nobody is saying that. We're saying that we want to hold police accountable. We want to have police to be able to say that if the police department is not equipped to be able to handle certain aspects, then they should not be the ones who are called for it. And they should not be the ones who are receiving the funding for that. For instance, mental health. If there's anything that has to do with mental health, the person that you should call is not the police. I think that is a accepted truth. The police are not equipped to be able to handle any mental health issues. That's not their training, anything like that. So instead of allocating that money for the police department to be the people who handle that, you allocate it to somebody who is a specialist to be able to handle that. And that would take the funding for that specific aspect away from the police and give that to somebody who is equipped to have it. Now, I think that goes along a long list of different, I think, as far as what do you call the resource officers that are in schools. Police are not trained to be able to handle children, middle school and high school years old. There should be specific people who are for that. And those are the people who those funds who are allocated should go towards that. You know what I mean? So, but Trump knows this. Trump is not an idiot. He plays dumb, but he knows that is what it's talking about specifically. And so, but he says, no, if you want any kind of police reform, that means you're anti-police. And anybody that's anti-police is un-American. And anybody that's un-American is against the values and he draws that line. The problem that I have is when Democrats, Biden, falls for that narrative and then starts defending the created narrative of what defund the police means. You see what I'm saying? So Biden needs to be a lot of times guided into a certain way. Trump is evil. That's different. Trump knows what he's doing. Trump knows that he's rearranging the narrative. Trump knows that what he's trying to do. So and that's why I keep going back to it's two different things. I really want to see what happens from Ice Cube going and speaking with Biden. I think that he can have guidance. He can be pushed in the right direction. He has a lot of faults, and we can list all his faults, but he is somebody who you can at least work with, right? The other alternative, Trump, he is on the opposite side. He is on the side of white supremacy. He is on the side of specifically using the ignorance of different people to be able to get to his reelection in a way of the poor whites, in a way of uneducated whites. He knows what he's doing. He's not as ignorant as he acts. He knows specifically what he's doing. And I think that's the difference.
Well, I tell you, I think that, first of all, I'll say this, I know you and I both, we're both acquainted with Ice Cube, and I have a lot of respect for what he's doing and sit down with Biden. And also, it's interesting. I assume since Etan, by the way, in case y'all don't know, Etan's such a good guy. He's like my other friend D1. Everybody loves Etan. I have a few friends that like me, and a lot of people that hate my guts. Etan and D1 are the two guys where even their enemies love them to death, and I want to learn how to do that. I don't know how to do that, but Etan is also friends with Killer Mike. I assume you met him, right?
Yes,
and we both respect him. He's an intelligent guy. He leans left, but he also moves in interesting ways. And I saw where he's getting criticism right now, meeting with Governor Kemp down in Georgia. Right. And I didn't like that criticism because I don't think anybody has a right to criticize somebody for having a meeting. I personally think a meeting is okay. I think as long as the meeting isn't used to imply some sort of endorsement, right? But that's what it is, right? That's what they're going to try to get that photo op,
of course,
other stuff, right? Because people don't read, right? People don't take the time to investigate. They just see the picture. But I will say this: I'm all for. First of all, let me just say this: I separate us as Black men and us as Black people from either political party. I think that before we walk in, it's almost like if you have a corporation and a board, and you're going to have a big board meeting with 40 people. A lot of times in the politics, it gets funny where you'll have a small group of people that'll have a meeting before the meeting, so that they know where they stand before they start talking to other outsiders. I think Black people should have meetings before the meeting. Okay. I think that we should have conversations that secure our sovereignty so that we can understand how to avoid letting them play divide and conquer with us. Agreed. Right, where they can get Etan and Boyce fighting and all this other stuff, right? But instead, we should play divide and conquer against them, right? Look, I love it. I think I can visualize, the guys, somebody sitting down with Biden's people and saying, look, I got a call from the Trump administration. They're ready to write a check right now. What are you going to do? Are you going to match that? I think that's okay. I think meeting with everybody is okay because you're not committing to anything. It's like, going on a blind date or something, just find out what's out there. I don't think the Democrats even want us having meetings with anybody. I think, and not to say that they control anything. They don't control anything. We do what we want. But I just find it fascinating, again, going back to that ownership pimping kind of thing. Like, what are you doing talking to them? I think that has to be pushed off the table. Well, I want to. What do you think?
Well, I think that when you see someone, I remember listening to Steve Harvey talk about what happened and what transpired at his meeting with Trump. And it was completely something different. And he talks about it now. He says, Trump used me as a prop. And what, he wasn't even interested in what I had to say. So you have to be able to set the parameters of the meeting before you go and meet with somebody like Trump. You know what I mean? You have to be able to make it known exactly what you're meeting about, because what they're going to do is use you as a prop. And it was sad seeing the brothers over there, you know what I mean, with Trump putting his arm around them and he's using them. It's the same way that when they invited, if you watch the Republican National Convention, all the different people, Herschel Walker, just the whole list of Black people that they rolled out there. And they didn't trot them to be able to say that engage in Black people and engage the Black. They trotted them out to say, look, we're not racist. We got all these Black people all around here speaking, let them speak and everything. Let them come through the front door and everything. They don't even have to go through the back. You know what I mean? So they use that to be able to use it as props. And I think that's the fear when someone sees a Killer Mike meeting with him, because they're like, oh, wait a minute, not Killer Mike. You know what I mean? He can't get used like that. So I think that is the reason why you're seeing some of the criticism immediately. And I mean, I got to admit, when I saw it, I was like, oh, no, Killer Mike, what you doing? You know what I mean? Well, let me hear what Killer Mike is saying specifically. So you got to make it known specifically what is your purpose for meeting with them and what you're doing and because they will twist it all up.
Well, you know what's interesting? So I would ask you this question then. So let's assume I know Republicans who are in this category. I know Republicans who really are ride or die for the Black community. Like, they're Republicans because they believe in the values of the Republican Party. You know, it might have to do with faith. You know, they may be pretending.
But hold on, wait. No, wait. Time out.
They may be pretending, but
no. As soon as they say that, that takes Trump out of the equation. You cannot tell me that you are the values.
Right.
But you can't even say the two in the same sentence.
No, but it gets to that core point though, right? Nobody votes for a candidate anymore. Nobody votes for a candidate. They're just always voting against the other candidate, right? So when I talk to my friends that are Trump supporters, they're never really voting for Trump. The same way you criticized Biden and went down the laundry list of the issues you had, they got the same laundry list, man. They're literally like, I don't want to vote for him. But it's interesting to me because what they've been led to believe, because they're watching Fox News on repeat, is they've been led to believe that Hillary Clinton and the Democrats and Joe Biden are the devil, right? It's always a new devil. Whoever the Democrats put up, they sour that person to the point where you think they can't do anything right. And I'm gonna just tell y'all the truth. You know, when I think about the gravity of being president of the United States and how difficult that job is, I don't feel comfortable with Trump being in office, because I don't think Trump can really handle that appropriately. I think his ego is just not in the right, his spirit's not right with me. But despite all the evil and the chaos of Hillary Clinton and that crazy history she and her husband have, I would rather see a Hillary Clinton in there, because in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I know she's just, you know, she's a racist old white woman most likely, but at least she knows her way around the office. She knows what to do. She knows who to call if something goes wrong. And so I think there's something to be said about that competence.
I agree.
Right. Now Biden, I think, has similar competencies. The problem for Biden is that he's an old guy who isn't as sharp as he used to be mentally. So this is my little theory.
Neither is Trump, though. Don't let you know.
He's not. All
right. You can't talk about sharp and, you know what I mean? Trump ain't sharp as cool.
Well, you know, at least, but Trump is a consistent prick, right? He's consistently Donald Trump. Joe Biden, when he's forgetting little things. So here's my theory, man. I'll let you get your thoughts. Go in any direction you want to go.
Okay.
Because we're just talking now. I'm not even debating with you, man.
No, we're just talking. It is not even debating.
So my prediction is that Kamala Harris, again, another person who's competent. I think she knows her way around. I think they picked Kamala not just because of what she brings with black votes and everything else, but I think Kamala is going to be president. I think that they know something we don't know, or they're preparing for something. She's the insurance policy, where if Biden just declines a little too much, he steps to the side. You got your first female president, at least. And now, if you want to call it black, African American, I know her father's Jamaican, so I guess that technically says black, right?
But technically that is black. Technically.
But no. But a black Jamaican is not the same as an African American, because we don't live in Jamaica.
But they are still black. My family's from Grenada. My family's from the Caribbean. We are black. Where we was at before Grenada was in Africa. You know what I mean? Like that.
But if I went to Grenada and became president and I said, we're all black, the people in Grenada would probably say, no, but you're Black American. You're not black. You're not one of us per se. Right. So I think African Americans have the right to say that. They have the right to say that we want, foundational Black Americans in specific spots, because they understand the slavery. They understand what we've gone through. They understand.
But no, Dr. Watkins, they had slavery in the Caribbean. They had the worst kind of slavery in the Caribbean. No, that's the divide. That's the divide.
But if she was running for president of Jamaica, it'd be a different conversation. I don't know. I'm not going to say yes or no, but I'd be curious to know, just curious. How do you think Jamaicans would feel if I went over there as an African American? Let's say I lived there for 20 or 30 years, grew up there, but I'm still American, but I'm black. You know, would they look at me the same?
You are black.
Black Jamaican.
Yes.
Peter
Tosh has sung about that. Bob Marley has sung about that. Yes, you are black. Is one love, is one nation of black. When if you in Grenada, so I wasn't born in Grenada. My grandmother was born in Grenada. You know what I mean? So it's not like I was, it's not like my parents were, my grandparents were, my grandmother was, and they embraced me because you're black. You have any kind of trace, you're with us. And that's the name. So the conversation, and that's another time when we allowed the right to be able to throw something as, now there's different things that we could debate and discuss about with Kamala Harris's past, but her ethnicity should not be one of them. You know what I mean? If she's not black or not, should not be one of them. Now, the right said, oh, she claims she's black, but she's not really black. I saw that all on Fox News as soon as she was a Democratic nominee. All over that, because, you know, I still got to peek at Fox News. You got to be able to peek. Malcolm X said, you know, you have to be able to study your enemy if you're going to call them your enemy. You know what I mean? You have to know the ways of your enemy if you're going to call them your enemy. So I do watch Fox News. So the time, as soon as they said, oh, that was that divide, and we fell for it. Because for a long time, we was talking about, okay, well, she's black. She's Jamaican, but that's not black. You're like, oh, gosh, we shouldn't even be talking about that. We should talk about her being able to go back to say what she has to do to correct and right her wrongs from the past of when she with incarceration and you know what I mean? That's what we should be focused on, not if she's black or not. So that part.
Well, I do agree with you that should be the focus, right?
Right.
I think you can make the point without making it the focus, right?
Okay.
I think that you can fairly say, look, you know, we get you. We think we like you. You went to Howard. You joined the AKAs. That's really cool. But you're not the same as an African American with two African American parents born in the South Side of Chicago who's endured all the trouble being African American. Just the white husband alone it means a lot for a lot of people. Now, some might say, well, who cares? It makes no difference who she marries. I'm going to tell you
that makes a difference. That part is different. I agree with you on that one. You know what I mean? Because it does make it.
You're married to a beautiful black woman. I'm married a beautiful black woman. I would not feel like the same man standing before black people saying, I represent you. If I've got, you know, a blonde haired, blue eyed wife, I would feel it doesn't mean I'm not black anymore. Right. It just means that the most important decisions in my life, when it came to that important decision of who I'm going to give my life to, I didn't choose a black woman. And I think people would rightfully say, well, we don't really know if you completely get us if you didn't even choose a black woman for your wife. What do you think about that?
I don't know. You know what I mean? Honestly, it's an interesting discussion. I definitely hear that the point. You know, if I'm looking at some of the civil rights leaders from the past, the people that stood up for us, the people, and some of them had wives that did not look black and they were not black. You know what I mean? But I see the work that they did. So I can't really discount. I don't have to go and name different people or anything like that, but we know that there were quite a few. So I don't know. I just don't want us to get hung up on that issue. You know what I mean? Because there's so many other things that we should be focused on. I don't think that's the issue that, you know, is going to change everything.
I do think that I do agree with you on that. I think that we have a lot of one issue voters, right? And that's just not the best way to vote. We in fact, I think the reason that our politicians are a reflection of our collective stupidity, in my opinion. I think that we tend to pick in such terrible ways that we get these bad leaders and then we don't know who to blame. Well, part of it does lean on us, right? You know, like what is it that we're using as our criteria to decide who to vote for? And I think with Biden and Kamala, I see them as qualified people. I see them as more qualified than Trump and Pence. Pence doesn't say anything, so I don't know anything. I don't know
anything about it. But it's not. But the thing about it, as far as qualifications, it's not even close. Like that part is not even. I mean, you look at all right. So everything.
That was governor of Indiana. That's got to mean something.
Well, like you said, he's governor of Indiana. You don't know nothing about him. You know what I'm saying? He's just a puppet there. I don't even know if he even allowed to speak that much. You know what I mean? He's just a puppet. And so but when you have Trump, imagine, and it's all, and we know that there are two different standards. We know that, you know, Obama had to be the exceptional black man in order to even be able to be considered in that position. All Trump had to be was rich and white. That's it. So if you look at the different things of what Trump has done, if Obama had done any of that, oh my God. Like, I mean, just take them as far as the pandemic. And I know we have differences on the coronavirus. We have the difference of opinions, me and you do. But let's just take the new development as far as what Trump knew and what he didn't know. Okay, if there is documented evidence with it, when this book comes out, you know what I mean, of Woodard and what they keep saying and the tape that they're showing, and they can show the document that he knew, and he said this before, that he knew the gravity of it, he knew that how coronavirus could spread, he knew the seriousness of it, and then he went out and told everybody it was a hoax from the Democrats and not to even pay it any attention. And we should all just get out and do what you want to do. And we should open up by Easter. Remember, he was saying that. And he went and said all of that after he knew all of this. That's negligence. That's like almost, how many people have died from that? You know, I mean, I can't even wrap my mind around how anyone can even say that they can overlook that and they can forgive that because of a tax break. Or they can forgive that because of whatever one issue, like you said, you have one issue voters, whatever one issue it is, and you can forgive something as negligent as that. I mean, and that's where it's like, you know, when I'm listening to some of the people make the comparisons between him and Biden, I'm like, they're very different. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they're not on the same wavelength. Biden has said what his plan was going to be to open up schools, what his plan was going to be to safely be able to, you know, operate in this coronavirus society that we have. He doesn't want to completely shut down. He said that, but he wants to be able to carefully and everything. Trump said from the beginning, we got to open up everything, almost defiantly. Like, don't pay attention to this. So if you tell me that way back here, he knew all of this, and then he went out and told the American people the opposite, and he told all the red states the opposite, and they listened to him and opened up, and their people contracted the virus, and then they had all the different, you know, spikes and everything. Those are supposed to be the people, but that should show you that he don't care about y'all either.
Well, let me just say this. let me respond to it. Let me acknowledge what you just said, and and because I do acknowledge it, and I think that everything you said, you made a very valid point on that. First of all, I'm gonna say this. I think Biden's gonna win the election, but I don't think it'll be because of this. I think that the media has lost so much credibility because, as a person who I've always said, you know, I'm not planning on voting for either side. I've watched the media, and the bias is unbelievable. I can go right down CNN's page, and every article is anti-Trump, anti-Trump, anti-Trump. And I don't believe anybody who says that somebody is 100% of anything. You know, it's like when you do these smear documentaries, like, for example, R. Kelly. I don't have a lot of respect for R. Kelly as a person. I think he's kind of a messed up dude, but I don't
kind of.
Wait, say, yeah, I agree.
Kind of.
Wait, say it again.
I said kind of a messed up dude.
Well, beyond messed up, right? But here's the thing, right? Like, we both have daughters, and we wouldn't want our daughters anywhere near a guy like that. But let me just tell you, man, when I see a documentary where every single person you talk to has something negative to say, I tune out, because I want to see the complete picture. I want to hear everything. All right. Like a judge does not just want to hear from the defense attorney or the prosecutors. They want to hear from everybody, even though they know both sides are going to be biased. They like to find, you know, what's the complete truth. So my point here is to say, and I think comparing Trump and R. Kelly is actually pretty accurate, because Trump's a creepy guy. He's got some crazy stuff in his past. Now, mind you, Biden, if I'm not mistaken, didn't Biden have that son that was smoking crack and all this other? And he's got some interesting things going on in his past as well. So let's not forget that. But I don't think he's as bad as Trump. But with that said, I think that the sad thing is that when you do have something like a smoking gun on Trump, half the country ain't listening. And the reason half the country ain't listening is because we're not listening to half the country. Like, what happens to me with liberals and the Democrats, they control a lot of the media. They have a lot of support in Hollywood, celebrity Hollywood. They also have a lot of momentum in a lot of universities. You know, the universities, like when I was at Syracuse, you were more likely to get support if you were liberal than if you're conservative. Not to say conservatives didn't exist, but it was pretty liberal. A lot of the things we teach. So I personally think we're losing as a country. I think Trump is a creation of the liberal side of America, because because there's a lot of finger pointing and condemning and labeling people. You have toxic masculinity. You're homophobic. You're cisgender. You're cisgender privilege. You know, just all these things. And I know people back down south who are just regular church going folks who just want to take care of their families, who are not on board with pushing, where you're pushing them too fast. You know, they're the gay stuff is being shoved in their face, so they feel this way, right? And they're not being listened to. So when you come back and you say, you know what, Trump was lying to y'all, and we've got proof. They're like, you know what they're going to say? They're going to say, oh, that's another media conspiracy, right? Now, specifically to that point about the virus, what I will say, without defending Trump's point, because I'm not trying to go get in bed with Donald Trump's ideas. I'm not interested in that. I think that there's something to be said about not creating panic, because I think that we overreacted. I really do. We talk about this number, 180,000, as if it's the biggest number in the world, as if 1 out of every 3 people died. That's a tiny number. 99.99% of the population will not die from this virus. 99.99%. But 99% of us will be affected in a negative way. There are so many people that lost jobs. Alicia's a therapist. The clinics are full of young people that are depressed and suicidal because they can't go out anymore. They can't enjoy their lives. They can't go to college and live a normal life. They're getting kicked out of school because they didn't wear a mask. You know, there's a lot of suffering that's happening around this. And I'm a believer in the strength of America. And what do I mean by that? Well, I believe that we have a country that's smart enough and strong enough that we can protect ourselves from the virus. Like, I got a mask right here, man. I want to prove to you, I keep my mask with me everywhere I go, right? Like, we can protect ourselves, wash our hands, social distance and all that, and still live, you know, not shut everything down. I am a firm believer that they shut down the whole damn economy with all these people losing jobs just because they were like, we want to make Trump look bad. Right. And because I'm going to tell you this, mark my words, man, mark my words. As soon as Biden gets elected, you're going to see things opening back up. You're going to see less talk about it in the media. You're going to see more things opening up because nobody likes a politician when there's no jobs. Like, you know, nobody likes that. So I personally think that there was an overreaction. Again, if 5 million people die, that's one thing. But 180,000 is less than the number of people that die every year from heart disease, diabetes, all kinds of stuff. Right. So it's not, it sounds like a big number, but it's really not that big. But they don't, but most people don't get that. They see one story, one death. And I'm saying this as a guy whose my dad just got out of, you know, cancer therapy and has an immune system that is about this big. But I was like, I'm not going to go 2 years not seeing my dad when I don't know how long he's going to be around just because a politician told me to. Like, no, we still take our chances. So go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
But it's not because a politician told me to. So I just interviewed this young athlete, Dante Greer, and he's from Australia. He plays in Australia. And he was telling me how the Australian curve has been flattened to the point where they're living normal lives. You know, the coronavirus is not an issue there. I've seen all these different countries who have changed, whose numbers were spiked in the beginning, like ours were here, and they took extreme measures for a little while, and then they're back to normal now. So I look in contrast to what Trump did. And Trump spent all of those months telling everybody it's a Democratic hoax. It's a liberal, you know what I mean, something they made up to destroy. Like, they're going to make up a virus to destroy his presidency, you know, his good economy that he keeps on touting and promoting, that we know was piggybacking off of Obama's policies anyway. You know what I mean? Like, if you are an informed voter and you go back and look at everything, he likes to take all the credit for things that Obama did, but then he wants to criticize the stuff that didn't work well. You know what I mean? But so that the economy and the re-stimulation, the unemployment low rate and everything like that, that was all a result of Obama's policies, and those are all proven. But what he has done is flip the script so much to say that it was all because of him. And I understand you would have a great economy going to an election because no president is going to be reelected in a bad economy. That's just not the way it worked historically. So I understand from an economic from a election standpoint why he is doing that. But is it the best for the American people? You know what I mean? So for me, I'm in a high risk area. I got to plug in my computer because it's going down. But I'm in the high risk group. And if anybody knows my history, I had open heart surgery while I was playing for the Wizards, right? So I'm in the high risk category. So when I hear Republicans say, well, how many people have died? You know what I mean? How many people have everything like that? So I look at myself, right? And I say, okay, I'm looking at these young athletes in particular. And I'm looking at the colleges who are pushing this goal to open up. And not even just take athletes, just take everybody and all around the country, right? In the places where Trump is promoting, and a lot of times they're red states, Florida, Texas, Oklahoma, where my family is from, where, you know what I mean, where I grew up, all the red states, and they're promoting them. They were promoting them back in march to open up, you know what I mean? And different things like that. So these people who now contracted the virus from Trump urging them to open up, right? They didn't die immediately, but we don't even know the long-term effects and what happens with them. We don't know the long-term effects on their kidneys, on their respiratory system, on their lungs. You know what I mean? There have been all the different proven things that have been able to link where you have a lung deficiency and your capacity shrinks once you contract the coronavirus. Now, going to the athletes, you're almost ruining a lot of these young athletes who in a few years could have respiratory issues so much where they can't play anymore. You know what I mean? So when Trump is saying, well, how many people have died? That's what they keep saying. How many people have died? They're all Fox News. Well, ain't nobody died. You know, how many people died? That's the barometer. That can't be the barometer right there. You know what I mean? So I think it's irresponsible for him to promote when there is an unknown. I think that's doing a disservice to everybody. So for somebody like me, who is in the high risk area, and there's a lot of people in the high risk area, and how this disproportionately affects the Black community is that there are a lot of different health concerns that the Black community has, myself included, you know what I mean? That puts us in the high risk area where if we contract the coronavirus, it will affect us more rapidly than somebody else. So if I contract the coronavirus with my history of having open heart surgery, I was playing with the Wizards. My immune system is different right now. It's been compromised before. So I would have different issues than somebody else who contracted the coronavirus. Even if I didn't die instantly, I would be on a different path, right? So I have to have different precautions. No, so for me, I don't care what nobody say. We're taking it easy and slow. I mean, you see me on social media. You know where I stand on that. You know what I mean? So like my son's school, he just started high school, and I'm glad that they decided to go virtual. But I told his soccer coach, told his basketball coach, told the president of the school, if y'all was going to open up completely, Malcolm would not be going there. Like, I don't care what y'all say, he would be right here at the house with me until I see how everything goes. So that's what my position is. But going back to Trump, you know, if he is giving specific bad advice in order to be able to have, and it's a gamble because he wants the economy to open up so things could go back better. The unemployment, the businesses that were closing, all that stuff, so that he can improve his chances of being reelected, right? Not in caring about the lives of the people, just that the economy could somehow get a boost and something like that so that improve his chances. That's negligence. Nobody should be able to wrap their arms around that, just from a philosophy standpoint of that's the position that he took. Now, you know, and with this new development, with when he knew that it was as serious as it was, and then he went out and told everybody it's not serious, that right there, if nothing else, that right there should be enough to tell you how evil this man is. So when we talk about evil, we have to make sure that we explain, yes, Biden has deficiencies. Biden has different ways that we have to push him to do better and adopt different things. But Trump is evil. That's something totally different. It's not the lesser of two evils. It's one that needs to be pushed and one that is evil.
Well, let me just say this. By the way, everybody, please hit the thumbs up button. I'm speaking with Etan Thomas, and we're having a friendly conversation about the election and stuff like that. So if you could, please hit the thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to drboycetv.com. And also, you should follow Etan on Instagram. It's at Etan Thomas, ETAN, right? I mean,
Thomas 36, my jersey number when I play.
Is that Etan Thomas 36?
Yes, sir. Yes,
okay, Etan Thomas 36. Yeah. So follow. Everybody should follow Etan because I think it's important that we hear all different points of view. And I see some of y'all in the chat. Just so you know, man, I'm looking in the chat, right? And these are my people, and they're like, "Come on, boys, challenge him on this, challenge him on that." Well, don't get me wrong. I think it's fun. You know, we're competitive guys, and it's fun to kind of challenge each other's thinking. But there's times where you need to be heard, and times where you need to hear, you need to listen. And so y'all hear me every day. You hear me all the time. You've heard that. You know where I stand. I think it's also important to consider other ideas and other perspectives. Because I think the most important thing is at the end of the day, after this is done, I just want us to come out of this as friends. You know, like if again, it's like to use a basketball analogy, if I'm wearing a Lakers uniform and you're playing for the Trailblazers, like we shouldn't get so caught up in the organizations we play for that we can't be friends after the game is over.
Oh, of course. And even when we talked and I reached out to you, it was never, that's why I wanted to be clear. But even if, there are different things where we have different opinions on. You know what I mean? We have disagreements, but we're also friends, and we also have a mutual respect for each other. And we're also not, getting into like what you call the plantation fights and stuff like that. But the way that they put that on TV, where there's like this yelling match back and forth, and then they go yeah, that's not what we would do in any circumstance. So I respect you for being able to be open for me to even come on your platform and even have this discussion with me. So I mean, you're Dr. Boyce Watkins. You're a professor. You've done all of this stuff. It says a lot about you to be able to have a discussion with somebody that that you have different opinions on. That says a lot, because a lot of people don't want to they don't want to do that on their platform. Now they'll do that if they're invited on CNN or they're invited on something like that, but on their platform, they want to be able to promote the only thing that they believe. And a lot of people, do that. So it says a lot about you to even be open to having this discussion.
Well, it says a lot about you as well, and I hope that, to the extent that anybody pays attention or just gives a shit about what we're doing here, not that we're better than anybody that's in this room, but I hope people can kind of gain something from this, that, I encourage you to go talk to your relatives that disagree with you. Because that's really how you get smarter. You open your mind, you see other points of view, and I think you gain the most when you really try as hard as you can to understand and appreciate a perspective that's completely different from your own. You can still maintain your own intellectual sovereignty, if you will. I'm big on sovereignty and freedom, right? Like, this is where I stand. This is who I am. You're not going to change too much of that. But I can take a moment and walk over here and really, like, I'll use Cardi B as an example. I think the Cardi B music, the whole WAP concept, little kids listen to that, it bothers me as a dad. I'm not endorsing any of that, right?
I agree.
But when I'm really letting myself be open-minded, I'll stop and I'll try to see the world through her eyes. And then sometimes I see things about myself that need to be adjusted. Like, I'll look back and say, maybe you're being a little bit too harsh. Maybe you need to reframe your statement so that you get to the point without necessarily chopping or giving the impression that you're chopping up, a young lady who's just doing what she knows how to do, right? But at the same time, I'm still going to be a dad. I'm still going to say, well, that does not support my interest, right? If I was a stripper or something, maybe I feel, or a rapper, I don't know. But as a dad, it's like, no, I don't want my 10-year-old hearing none of that, right? So let me just, so you said a few things, and you made a lot of great points, but I'm gonna give another perspective as well and lay it out here real quick. I was listening, you spurred so many thoughts. I was taking notes. So here's one thing I'm gonna throw out here, right? Okay. I don't know if you guys know this. So we talked about 180,000 have died in the U.S. from the coronavirus. Terrible. It's sad. It's 180,000 too many. We know this, right? But I mentioned also that 99.99% of us won't die, but yet the majority of us have been impacted, right? So it's a little bit like terrorism. A few people die, but then the entire population is mortified, scared to death. I know people that haven't left the house since March. Old people who are going to probably die in the house alone, right? And so to me, if you're putting that much of a weight on people's minds, you better make sure you know what you're doing. It better be worth it, right? So if you look at statistics, for example, you'll see that also 1.25 million people every year die from car crashes, right? 20 million people actually are injured or severely, right, from car crashes. So but I've never heard anybody say, well, we should just all ban driving until we flatten the curve, right? No cars until we have no deaths, because my God, 200 people died from car crashes. That's a tragedy, right? And imagine if every day we put a car crash death on the cover of the newspaper and said, this is terrible, this is tragic, this is horrible, right? Now, I know car crashes are not contagious like a virus is, right? We know this, right? But still, if you just look at the numbers where they are, not what they could be and everything else, a lot of the conversation I hear about COVID is, well, it's only here, but it could be here, right? Yeah, but it's not, right? So you have to kind of acknowledge that too. And I think also, when I listen to people talk about the virus, just sticking on the COVID issue, I think about, for example, when you mentioned the athletes, and I will say, to your point, I happen to know somebody just today who had COVID, thought they got over it. Now they're back in the hospital again, and there are a lot of complications they're having. That heightened my awareness. That made me say, wow, let's keep being safe and careful, because if you catch it, it's bad, right? We know this, right? But to the point where when we refer to sort of the health issues, like the young athletes, things like that, young football players who may get lung damage from catching COVID, things like that. these young people they still want to play. You know, football is their life dream, and that's what they've trained for, and that's what they love. And I'm a believer in letting them play. And the reason is that, you know, if you really want to talk about what's really dangerous for you, I mean, my God, football is the most dangerous sport imaginable, right? I mean, you and I both know we've seen the tragedies that can occur on a football field, paralysis and all kinds of things that can happen. Brain damage is almost a given. You're going to have the brain damage if you play college football. That's been proven through study after study, but nobody's banned football. Also, when you talk about safety, I recall I was a little bit confused when, you know, 1 minute we're being told not to go to work, not to go to church, nothing like that. But then when the protests start up, they're like, rah, go protest. Let's paint Black Lives Matter on the street. We're proud of you for going out and protesting. So I was like, wait a minute, if crowds are dangerous at work or at church, why is it okay to form a crowd of 10,000 people for a protest? Sure, we could argue that they were socially distancing. Nah, I don't know. It didn't work for me.
Let me interject right there though, because Trump had a rally in my hometown of Tulsa, Oklahoma. And he specifically encouraged everybody to ignore safety protocols. This is the rally that you saw where all the black people for Trump was all posing and dancing, and that looked so terrible. I was like, why are they dancing? What are they doing? You know what I mean? That was the one.
I just think black people in politics need to stop dancing because
all around. There's no reason to dance.
The Obamas did more dancing in the White House than any politician I've ever seen. I saw Michelle Obama do a rap video. You remember that? Do you remember that?
I remember.
Like we get to stop that. No dancing for your favorite white man. I'm sorry. No dancing for your favorite political party. All
right. Well, first of all, with Michelle Obama, she was doing a fitness thing, so she was doing the song with the fitness thing. So that one you got to give her a pass.
The booth, and she was like a rapper, you know, like she
was doing the fitness thing to get everybody moving. That's a little, but I do hear your point. I do hear your point. But her whole thing was the fitness thing. I don't know. But to your point, I definitely do agree. The dancing thing, there's no reason for them to be dancing. And so I'm looking at that in Tulsa, Oklahoma, in that big rally, and I'm looking at all of them, and they're proudly, defiantly, you know, not social distancing. Nobody had a mask. And then unfortunately, you saw with Herman Cain, who was there, he passed away. And Trump, I mean, has he still said anything hardly about him? Like he might, you know, they don't care. So it was like you was using this to defiantly show that you don't need to be worried about the coronavirus. You know what I mean? So even at some of the different protests, you've seen different protests who they've had the social distancing, they've had the spacing, they told everybody to march, you know what I mean, to put their mask on and stuff like that. I have seen that, but there is a little bit of difference that now I wouldn't have done either of them. Let me make that point clear. So I have been protesting from my house. So that's just for me personally. You know what I mean? I mean, the Wizards protest here in DC, and I was like, look, I'll support y'all from here. You know what I mean? From this right here where I'm at right now, but I'm with y'all. So that's my personal thing. But that you saw even with John Wall and Bradley Beal walking, they had their mask on and they're telling everybody else to put them at. That is a little bit different. So that's not quite the same. But going back to it though, Trump specifically was telling the entire world not to worry about the coronavirus. And talking about athletes, I coach my son's AAU team, right? So back in March, I made the announcement and said, listen, we're not doing AAU this summer until this whole thing gets, you know, situated. I'm not going to put you at risk. We don't know. There's a lot of questions. You know, we just don't know. Now, there were other programs that wanted to go for the same reasons. No, kids need to play. The kids want to play. Of course the kids want to play. My son wanted to play. I had to tell my son no. You know, that's the job of a father. You know what I mean? To tell your son, no, not right now. And Trump was pushing for, especially in the red states, you saw youth football, youth sports open up in Florida, youth sports open up in Texas, open up in Oklahoma. And all of these young cats was having like outbreaks on their teams with the coronavirus. And then they went back and shut them down. I know because I'm asking a lot of my friends in Tulsa, I'm like, wait, your son playing soccer now? And they're like, yeah. And then a few weeks later, they all had to shut down because there was this big outbreak. And that's all because of Trump pushing to say that you all should open up. And so, and going back to it, if he's doing all of that pushing and all along he had that conversation and knows the seriousness of it, again, that is negligence to a whole different level.
Well, I'm going to say something that's going to sound just unpopular for some people. I think that's okay, though. I think that if we all go out and we all make a conscious decision to participate in something, and we know that 99.99% of us are going to survive, I don't see anything wrong with that. There are lots of things that we do on a daily basis where we know that there's a chance of death. For example, my father, and this just gives you an idea of our background. You know, my dad was a cop for 25 years. Every day he got up for work, and every year one of his colleagues would die. Every year, you know, he in fact, he had to shoot somebody once. It was a white guy who tried to kill him. Somebody tried to murder my father on the job. Oh. He didn't stop going to work. He got up and he did it because that was his job. When soldiers go to battle, you know, they know that there's a chance they may not come out. Now, we don't all have to be soldiers, right? We didn't all sign up for the military. But, you know, but when we get up and we leave the house and we go get in the car, things can happen. There are people that live in neighborhoods right here in Chicago and where you live in DC, where they get up and there's maybe a 0.1% chance that you might get killed because you live in a violent neighborhood. So here's my thing, right? Here's what I want to kind of drill into, and I'll let you get the last word, man, because we can just have this talk all day. You got to come back. But here's my thought. Here's what's interesting to me. So it's an election year, and suddenly everybody's concerned about safety and Black people, right? Black people being safe, Black people being healthy. Okay, I get that. I dig that. That's cool. But I'm sitting here just wondering, when all those other ways that Black people are dying, why are they never there for that? You know, why is it that, you know, when Ice Cube goes and tries to get the Democrats to talk about the contract with Black America at the DNC, and he's talking about all the thousands of children that have died just from gun violence alone in Black communities, there's no mention of that. They did a Herman Cain on that. They're like, we're not even going to talk about that, right? But yet we'll talk all day about Corona because that fits our agenda. And I think that's where the hypocrisy comes in, is that why will you only talk about Black people dying when it comes to Corona, but you don't talk about all the other ways Black people are dying? Or what about all the people that are still in prison right now from the Biden crime bill, like literally being beaten in prison, being raped in prison, going through hell in prison because they were locked up. They got 100 years in 1995 because of that Biden Clinton crime bill. Somebody's going to answer to that, right? Give me something on that.
Well, I agree, but even going back to the crime bill, and I will say that Joe Biden needs to verbalize this more. But he has everything laid out to what he was doing to contrast the crime bill on his website. I have right there. He said he will push to, let me pull it right up. He will push to, number one, eliminate the death penalty and mandatory minimums. Specifically, that's from the crime bill. He's like, end the federal crack and powder cocaine disparity. He will decriminalize the use of cannabis and automatically expunge all cannabis use convictions and incarceration for drug use alone, and expand effective alternatives to detention. And he will end cash bail and private prisons. And he goes on and on. Those are specific components of the crime bill. It's all right there on his website. So now I will say that Joe Biden needs to do a better job of verbalizing this. Ain't nobody going to his website. I just went to it because I researched it. You know what I mean? I'll tell you, you talk to people in the comment section, how many people went to his website and read this? He needs to verbalize this. He needs to get in front of the camera and say specifically, I was wrong with my support of the crime bill, and this is what I'm doing to try to rectify that. He needs to do that. Kamala Harris needs to go and say, listen, when I was an AG, well, I did this, and I was wrong with this, and this is why she needs to verbalize that. That I 100% agree with you. When Ice Cube goes and he meets with them and he talks about the contract with Black America, they need to be able to verbalize everything that I'm looking at here on their website, where they're talking about, creating wealth in the Black community. That's the number one on the tab of what they're going to do with the Black community. That's number one. So yes, you need to verbalize this more. You know, and you need to be able to say specifics now. Now it's not just to list them. Now you need to go into details. And all of that stuff needs to be done. Now, in contrast, you have Trump. In contrast, you have Trump, who said, I don't care about the Black community. I don't care about your plight. I don't care about what you've gone through. That's what he just said. So
wait. He didn't. I don't remember hearing him say.
No. Listen.
I thought that was a criticism that they had about.
No. It was that's from the book that is coming out, where he has the audio of him specifically saying that. Now of course I have questions of that. I was like, well, wait a minute. So you sat on this all this time and then waited for your book to come out now in September? Why you ain't tell everybody about this before? You know what I mean? Like all of this different stuff that he's saying. I mean, yeah, everybody's going to buy the book now, but you could have put this out before. But just going back to, you know, when people say, you know, Biden has no plan for the Black community, I'm like, well, no, that's not true. He has it on his website. Now you could say that there needs to be more in there. That you could definitely say. We need to make sure that we hold him accountable, so this isn't just lip service. That you could definitely say. You know what I mean? We need to push him to be able to say, well, we need to have this, and that with the contract of Black America. All of that. I am all for that. But when we make comparisons, they are not one and the same.
Well, I'm going to say this. I personally, I don't compare politicians to crappy politicians. I compare politicians to a standard, right?
That's good. I can respect that.
Because I think that there's a way to vote without participating. I think you've registered to vote and say, you won't get my vote, that Trump is your problem. He's your creation. You know, for example, 80% of the things that they tell me I should hate about this guy are things I don't care about. Like you're mad because he wants to build a wall. That makes him racist. No, that doesn't make him racist. That means he wants to build a wall. I know Black people who would support the wall, who gave to the wall, who don't want illegal immigrants coming into the country, not because they hate immigrants, but because they believe there's a process. They believe the same way you sent Lil Pookie to prison for 50 years for selling dope, for violating federal law. Can somebody break into the country? That's a violation of federal law too. Why are some laws enforced, but other laws are not? Right? I think that's what I personally don't want to see anymore. Is I'm tired of seeing Black people getting crapped on and ignored, and then we're suddenly supposed to take up these causes because white liberals handed them to us.
I agree with you on that. That 100%. I mean, their causes don't have to be our causes, and they don't have to be a thing. Well, that's a whole different discussion with white liberals. Because a lot of times they want to say, okay, we supported you when you were getting killed by the police. Now you have to support us with X, Y, and Z. I was like, well, what if I don't agree with you with X, Y, Z? And that creates an entire tension between Black people and liberals. And that's why a lot of progressives don't even look at me as being a real Democrat, because I don't agree with those principles. But like I said, that's a whole different discussion.
well, I love it, man. This is a great discussion. We got to have more of these, man. We just got to talk about all kinds. I'm gonna start. Your number's always been on my phone, so we just. I know, right, man? Because I think these conversations are good. You know, and I personally like being challenged. I don't know if that makes people appreciate the platform more or less, but I don't really give a shit, you know, because I personally don't want to be as stupid as our country has become. I just kind of feel like we don't understand, you know, the dangerous territory we're walking into when we're creating these civil war kinds of environments.
I agree.
You just can't have a country where 50 million people hate another 50 million. Like, it's not going to work, you know? And so I want to find common ground. So any leader who can bring us together. I'm telling you what has got me to the point that, first of all, I've never thought about being a Republican. They haven't done enough to earn my vote, so I'm not ever going in that direction, not anytime soon. But with Democrats or anybody, I think I could get behind a leader. This is one thing I did like about Obama is I like leaders that can proclaim decency and a level of trust that can bring the country together. So when I think about leaders that can do that, I think Barack was in that category. I think that a John McCain's or what's the brother's name, Colin Powell. If Colin Powell were running for president, I wouldn't care what party he ran for. I'd vote for him.
I agree. I mean, there are different fundamental differences I had with his support with the war in Iraq, but it was almost like he felt like he had some kind of allegiance to the Bush family to be able to support the young Bush. There was something weird going on. I don't know what it was. Something, you know what I mean? Something weird. But I definitely agree. But let me just say this. I like the way that you are challenging the Democrats and challenging Biden to be able to earn our vote. You know, we're not political chumps like Malcolm X said. You know what I mean? We're not, people who just give ours. And what did he say? That they deal with this, and then they get to you. You know what I mean? Like, and then after all, and that's not who we want to be as a people. We want people to be able to put us first, like try to put everybody else first. And I definitely agree with that. And the contract with Black America, keep pushing that, and keep working with Ice Cube and what you're doing, and you hold them accountable and make. I think that's what we should do. So I'm in all support of what you're doing.
Yeah, it's a good cop, bad cop. That's all it is.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
I like being the bad cop. When I talk to people that tell me they're going to meet with politicians, And, you know, I just tell them, like, I don't want to be invited to those meetings. I don't want to be a part. I want to be the asshole sitting outside the building who's screaming and hollering, who can't be satisfied. And then what that does, I hope, is it softens the position for those who are actually looking to build a bridge. Because compromise ain't comfortable. Compromise is not fun. Compromise is not something that really works for people that have big egos and that just don't want to ever give an inch, you know. And you know, think about it. I mean, can you imagine being married to somebody who never compromised? It wouldn't work. You know?
Not at all. Wouldn't work at all.
Right. You know, you've been
right.
How long have you been married to your wife? How many years?
16 years.
Yeah. So, you know, 16 years of not getting what you want most of the time. But okay, you know,
compromise. A little bit every now and then. Right.
Right. And I think that's what we need, because in this country, we have to have a healthy marriage as much as we can.
Definitely.
To survive. I do not want America to fail. I don't know if that sounds corny or what. No. But I do not want America to fail, because I have seen the histories of countries with, you know, violence and civil wars and chaos. And y'all don't want to live in a country like that. You just don't. You don't want to live in a country where buildings are being blown up and your child's school's getting shot up and militia are walking down your street. You want to be in a peaceful country. So let's keep the peace. So anyway, man, it was great talking to you, brother. Thank you for coming on.
Great talking to you too, Dr. Watkins. Keep doing what you do.
Here we are, clan the isms, cataclysm great. Our people out here struggling, trying to make it in this state. Everybody out here doing it, but we the ones who late. Now family, we the ones who gotta delegate. Get that money in the power, never be fake. Stick to cosign for 3. What did he say? Create jobs, support our own. Educate the same and buy back your home. Got 3 degrees, triple 10. 3 PhDs, now we on the CNN. DBTV, let's talk about negligence. Ignorance is bliss, but we can turn it to intelligence. Believe none of what you hear, half of what you see. Let's break it down here on Dr. Boyce TV. Here we are.
Doing.
For sure. And thank you guys for listening. I appreciate it. Make sure you hit the thumbs up button, share, and subscribe button on your way out. Follow Etan on Instagram. He's Etan Thomas 36, ETAN, Etan Thomas 36. You guys have a great day and keep being black and intelligent. We love you. We'll see you guys soon. Peace. Take care, man.
That was good. All right. Have a good one.